California had a rule that schools cannot be required to notify parents if their kids in school have changed their gender, their pronouns. That's the kind of thing, even though it doesn't affect a lot of people, that makes a lot of people go, well, you know what? That's the party without common sense. Now, if that's your state, how are you?
Well, I just disagree with that. I mean, the law was you would be fired. A teacher would be fired if a teacher did not report or snitch on a kid talking about their gender identity. I just think that was wrong. I think teachers should teach. I don't think they should be required to turn in kids. And by the way,
we're talking about their parents. How can you snitch? The idea of a snitch and a parent, to me, doesn't comply.
Bill Maher didn't pull any punches in real time, going straight at Gavin Newsom live and unfiltered, accusing the California governor of presiding over a state in visible decline. He laid it all out: runaway homelessness, crushing taxes, rising crime, and residents fleeing in record numbers, turning what could have been routine political chatter into a genuine moment of reckoning. The shock came when Newsom himself admitted that even the Democratic Party is starting to fracture, an acknowledgement that only fueled the fire and sent social media buzzing. Maher's takedown didn't feel like manufactured outrage. It sounded like the frustration of a fed-up Californian watching the Golden State lose its shine. Once held up as a crown jewel of progressive ambition, California now increasingly feels like a cautionary tale, with homelessness topping 180,000. The highest in the nation, despite billions spent on programs that have delivered little to no visible improvement.
Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass have already proven their incompetence and poor leadership during the Los Angeles wildfires. Now, as we experience rampant lawlessness and civil unrest, it's never been more clear they're unable to respond effectively and responsibly during calamity. Whether it's sheer incompetence or outright malevolence, the reality is stark. California's in a state of turmoil. And I ask my fellow Angelinos, why are Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass still in office? How much more of their destructive decision-making masquerading as leadership are we going to tolerate? It's time to take back our community and our state and put the power and the privilege in the hands of competent leaders whose goals are to protect us and the way of life this nation was founded upon.
Cities like Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Oakland have increasingly become real-world case studies in urban decline, with major tech companies such as Tesla, Oracle, and Hewlett-Packard relocating to Texas and Nevada and taking jobs and families with them. Crime, especially theft and looting, has surged to the point where retailers like Walgreens and Target are locking up basic items or closing stores altogether, while California's crushing tax burden, including the nation's highest top-income tax rate at 13.3%, has sparked frustration even among loyal liberals. Bill Maher, a longtime Los Angeles resident, has openly ridiculed the absurdity of paying luxury-level taxes while dodging potholes and stepping over tents, warning for months that California's progressive dream has curdled into something closer to fantasy. That frustration hung heavy when Gavin Newsom stepped onto the set ready to defend the state, pointing to GDP growth, Silicon Valley innovation, and climate leadership. But Maher wasn't buying the sales pitch.
Stuff like there's a new law in this. I think we have way too many regulations and laws, as we've talked about. And this one, I think, says if you're a department store with over 500 employees, you have to have a gender-neutral toy department.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah, I get it.
So do you think that's silly? Do you think that's a silly thing that too much government there?
That's an interesting one because the department stores came to us supporting that, and they were the ones making a case for that. They were making a case they're already moving in that direction.
Wanted you to make a law about them?
Well, they supported the legislation. It wasn't legislation that was enacted, that was initiated from my office, but it was legislation that came up with interesting support.
This wasn't a conservative ambush. It was one liberal holding another liberal accountable, and commentators didn't even call it an interview. They called it an intervention. The moment Bill Maher leaned forward and said, "You're running a state that everyone's leaving," the tone snapped from casual to confrontational. No jokes, no warm-up, just blunt reality. Gavin Newsom insisted California still leads in jobs and creativity, dismissing the exodus as right-wing spin, but Maher cut him off cold. "This isn't Fox News, Gavin. I'm talking about my friends, my neighbors. They're done paying top dollar for this dysfunction." From there, the conversation turned gritty as Maher described the tents, the smell and the danger, and when Newsom pivoted to compassion and reform, Maher fired back that after years in charge, things were only worse. The audience went quiet, not clapping, just nodding. Maher then calmly laid out the tax reality, arguing the middle class is being crushed. People making $80,000 can't afford rent, yet are taxed like millionaires while getting potholes and crime in return. Newsom reached for buzzwords like reinvestment and equity, but Maher's disbelief said everything. How can you brag about GDP when people can't live with dignity? He asked, landing the hardest line of the night. You talk about compassion, but we can't even drive to work without seeing despair on every block. At that point, it stopped being about politics and became about survival, whether Californians can still afford to live, feel safe, and stay sane. Newsom said big problems take time, but the numbers undercut him. Nearly 500,000 residents left between 2022 and 2023, and that's when Maher moved in for the final blow.
I feel like this country is divided into owners and healers. People who think who can own the other side. Gavin Newsom owned DeSantis. DeSantis destroyed Gavin Newsom. Or people who want to talk and heal. And I feel like the next president's going to be, at least if it comes from this party, the Democratic Party, someone who wants to talk and heal.
It's important. Democrats, we tend to be a little more judgmental than we should be. This notion of cancel culture, you've been living it. You've been on the receiving end of it for years and years and years. That's real. And Democrats need to own up to that. They've got to mature about it.